The first sound is the clatter of my mother's wooden ladle against the rice pot. Hiroshima, August 6, 1945. Dawn presses pale light through the paper shoji, turning the room the color of watered ink. I am Satoshi, 17, a student at First Hiroshima Prefectural Middle School. I wake to the smell of miso soup and damp summer tatami. I do not know this is the last morning that will feel ordinary. I only know the air is already heavy, the cicadas are restless in the trees by the river, and my school uniform hangs neatly from its peg. Outside, a tram bell rings faintly, as it always does, like a promise that the day will unfold in familiar steps. The sky is clear, washed clean by the night air. Our house, a small wooden place near the Misasa Bridge, creaks as my father slides open the front door. The street is still soft with shadows. Women in cotton yukata sweep dust from their doorways, the straw of their brooms whispering against the packed earth. A bicycle rattles past, its chain clicking, the rider's cap pulled low. I kneel at the low table. The miso soup steams, carrying the scent of seaweed and fermented soybean. Rice, slightly yellowed from barley, sits in my bowl. My father folds the morning newspaper carefully, his fingers stained with ink, his army uniform jacket hanging on the wall behind him, unused now but never put away. My younger sister hums as she ties her hair with a faded ribbon, the fabric worn smooth from her fingers. Outside, the Ota River glints in the early light. A tram grinds along the tracks toward the center, its metal wheels shrieking at a curve. Men in work clothes walk toward the factories and offices, lunchboxes wrapped in furoshiki swinging from their hands. The air smells of river mud, coal smoke from distant chimneys, and the faint sweetness of someone grilling fish. War has been the background of my whole youth, like the steady ticking of a clock. Ration cards lie in a neat stack by the kitchen shelf. My mother measures rice with a care that feels like prayer. We talk about food more than battles. Still, the war seeps into everything. The schoolyard drills, the air raid warnings that send us to shelters, the empty places at neighbors' tables where sons and husbands once sat. On the street, I pass posters urging endurance and thrift, their colors faded by sun and rain. At the tram stop, people stand in loose clusters, speaking in low voices. A woman in a plain kimono fans herself with a paper fan printed months ago, the edges curling. Two men in work caps murmur about the previous night's air raid sirens in other cities, about distant fires they have only heard described. Up to this point, Hiroshima has felt strangely spared. We hear of Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, names spoken with a mixture of fear and disbelief. We have dug air raid shelters, blacked out our windows, practiced evacuations, yet the city center still stands. The domed exhibition hall by the river, the shopping streets around Handori, the wooden houses leaning into one another like old friends. At school, we no longer spend all day with books. We clear rubble, carry supplies, help with demolition work meant to stop fires from spreading if bombs ever fall here. I wear my student uniform, but my hands are calloused from hauling bricks and timber. In class, our teacher's voice sometimes drifts as he reads from texts about duty and perseverance. The windows are open, and the sound of cicadas and distant factory whistles slips in, blurring the edges of his words. Rumors move through the city like invisible currents. Some say the enemy has no bombs left. Others whisper about new kinds of weapons, though no one knows what that means. My father folds the newspaper tighter when he reads of battles far away. He says little, only that we must do our work and look after one another. The radio in the corner crackles in the evenings with official announcements, but in the morning it is silent, a dark box waiting. The tram I board is crowded but calm. A soldier with his arm in a sling stands near the door, staring out at the passing streets. A mother hushes her child who points at the river and asks why the boats are so few now. I grip the leather strap above my head, feeling the worn smoothness where countless hands have held on before me. The city slides by, shop fronts with their shutters half raised, a barber sweeping hair from his doorway, a group of girls in work pants and monpei heading toward a factory, their laughter quickly swallowed by the grind of wheels. By late morning, the sun is high and white, flattening shadows. The heat presses against my skin and sweat gathers under my collar. We line up in the schoolyard, the dust fine and dry beneath our feet. Our teacher checks our names, his pencil moving down the list. Somewhere beyond the city, an airplane engine hums faintly, but we have grown used to distant sounds. The sirens are silent. The sky above Hiroshima is an unbroken blue. By afternoon, I am assigned to help clear a row of old houses near the center, part of the widening of fire breaks. We stack roof tiles in careful piles, the clay warm to the touch. The street smells of sun-baked wood and the faint tang of sweat and dust. A dog sleeps in the shade of a doorway, its ribs visible, its tail twitching at flies. A vendor pushes a cart of shaved ice, the block glistening as he scrapes it, the syrup bottles clinking softly. As the hours passed, the city moves in its familiar rhythm. Trams come and go, bells chiming, bicycles weave between pedestrians. A clerk in a white shirt and tie hurries past, clutching a bundle of papers. Somewhere, a radio plays a sentimental song, the melody drifting over rooftops. I think about the book I left half-read by my pillow, about the taste of cold barley tea waiting at home. When the sun begins to tilt, the light turns softer, catching on the river's surface in long streaks. We finish our work for the day, dust clinging to our legs. I stretch my back, feeling the pull of tired muscles. My friend jokes about the heat, about how even the cicadas must be exhausted. We part at the tram stop, promising to meet again at school, as we always do. From here on, the memory breaks into pieces, like glass scattered on the ground. I remember a sudden, unnatural brightness, as if a second sun had bloomed above the city. I remember heat, a force that seemed to come from everywhere at once, pressing against my skin, my eyes, my lungs. The sound that followed was not like the familiar whine of sirens or the distant thud of bombs we had imagined. It was a vast, consuming roar that seemed to erase the boundary between sky and earth. The streets I walked that morning changed in an instant. Buildings that had stood for decades were torn open or flattened. The tram lines twisted. The wooden houses, with their careful displays, the schoolyard with its chalked lines, all were altered beyond recognition. The clear blue sky thickened with dust and smoke, turning the bright day into a strange, dim world. I moved through it as if in a dream, the air hot and filled with particles that stung my throat. Landmarks disappeared. The exhibition hall by the river, its dome a familiar shape against the skyline, stood broken but still there, a shell of what it had been. The river, which had carried fishing boats and children's laughter, now reflected a sky clouded with ash. In the days and weeks that followed, Hiroshima became a different city. Streets were blocked by debris, the patterns of daily life, trams, markets, school bells, fell silent or returned in altered forms. Families were separated, some never reunited. The routines that had seemed so ordinary that morning became memories we held on to with a kind of disbelief, as if they belonged to another lifetime. When I think back to that last normal morning, it is the small things that rise first. The way the steam curled from my soup bowl, the feel of the tram's worn leather strap under my fingers, the sound of my younger sister humming as she tied her ribbon. None of us knew we were standing at the edge of a dividing line that would split our lives into before and after. I wish I had looked more closely at the faces around me on the tram, at the shopkeepers lifting their shutters, at the children chasing each other along the riverbank. I wish I had memorized the exact pattern of sunlight on the tiled roofs, the smell of the bakery near the corner, the way the exhibition hall's dome caught the morning light. These details, which once seemed unimportant, became anchors in a sea of change. Memory holds that day in a fragile balance. It is not only a story of destruction, but of a city that once woke to a clear sky, to the sound of brooms on doorsteps and tram bells in the distance. The ordinary moments, repeated day after day, were the threads that bound us to one another. When they were broken, we learned how much they had mattered. In remembering, I see not only loss, but also the quiet strength of those who swept their doorways, cooked simple meals, went to work and school, and greeted their neighbors, even as the wider world trembled. Our last ordinary day was, in its own way, an act of endurance. Hiroshima's morning of August 6, 1945, now lives both in personal recollection and in the records of history. The city that once woke to tram bells and cicadas became a symbol of a new age, when a single moment could alter the course of countless lives. Yet beneath the dates and facts are the textures of daily existence: rice bowls, ink-stained newspapers, the creak of wooden doors. To walk back through that final ordinary day is to understand that history is not only made in councils and commands, but also in kitchens and classrooms, on crowded trams and quiet riverbanks. The transformation that followed reshaped not just a city, but how the world thought about war, technology, and human vulnerability. In the final hours, Hiroshima's last unbroken morning stands beside other turning points, a reminder that every great change arrives first as a day like any other. This is one moment in a longer archive of cities shaped by time.